Yo, 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 what's going on? This is Thomas Galdenzi with Combat Sports Coverage. I'm here interviewing Alex, the Great White Morono, over his upcoming UFC fight, October 15th, 2016. So, Alex, tell me how you're feeling about 4 weeks out from this huge UFC fight when you take on 9-4 James Mutasa.
Good. I was really reluctant to be able to get another match this year. I had my first fight in the UFC in January, and I took that short notice. What a lot of people didn't know is I had a lingering, serious knee injury, but I had fought with it several times before, so I figured one more wouldn't hurt. And so I took that fight and won, and I got my knee fixed, and I thought the recovery time would be a little longer because it was such a major surgery. But, man, the doctors I had, state-of-the-art doctors in Texas, were the best in Texas, and I did not skip any days on physical therapy. I was ready to go in 5 months. I was able to take this fight. I've been training hard, and man, I feel better than ever. I forgot what it was like to have two good legs. I've never been in such good shape, and I've never been so quick on my feet.
Oh wow! So let's talk a little bit about your injury. How did that happen in your fight, or did it happen during training?
No, so this actually happened in 2013. I dealt with this for a long time.
Oh.
I was at training. I was a little bit younger, not as wise, and I was caught on a single leg. And in MMA training, instead of getting taken down, I was hopping on a little too long and was really trying to land some hard strikes. As soon as I tried to pull my leg out, he tried to turn. So it put a lot of tension on my standing leg, and a big pop happened. And I knew I had torn my ACL, but I had just started teaching full time at the gym. And I knew if I went and got it looked at that I was going to get some bad news and have to get surgery. So foolishly, I put it off. And then after 6 months of kind of babying it, training a little bit, it was good enough to kind of train fully. And I ended up taking a fight for legacy against Brandon Farron. And that I fought, and it felt great. And I fought for a couple more years, 10 more times, and I won the majority of those fights. But then after I had fought Derek Krantz for the welterweight championship for Legacy, I knew it was time to get fixed. It was going out on me pretty bad. When I had fought Baby Monster a couple months before that, it was at its worst. And so I had a plan to get fixed, but then the UFC called. I'm not going to say no to those guys. So I took that fight, and if you can even see in that fight, I didn't throw many low kicks. And there were a couple times when I would throw really hard punches. I'd literally just fall over because I was off balance because my knees just couldn't sustain the weight of my body moving around rapidly.
Oh wow!
And so finally got it fixed. And man, I forget what it's like to be able to sprint and jump and balance on one leg. It's really nice.
Dang. So you think now that you have two ultimate legs, how do you see this fight playing out with James Mutasa? Do you see yourself winning by a KO, a TKO, a submission, or is it just going to be an all-around beatdown?
So man, my mindset for fights is to knock out the one pure way to win a fight. Tapping guys out's cool, but it's kind of like easy way out for somebody. And he's a striker. He doesn't really shoot it much. What I've seen, I don't shoot it much. I think it's going to be a pretty good technical fight. The guy keeps his hands kind of low, and this is not the fight to brawl. So, man, we've just worked on some really sharp striking to kind of combat his distance-style striking. So I think it'll be a really fun fight to watch. And to fight him goes to the ground, I am 100% comfortable there. If anything presents itself, I'm going to take it. So, I mean, I think it's going to be a pretty well-rounded, all-around fight.
And how do you see it finishing? Do you see it going to decisions, or do you see yourself winning, getting by a finish?
No, absolutely not. The one thing that kind of haunted me from my last UFC fight is I didn't get a finish. And I am not about winning rounds or getting high in the rankings or winning a belt. Man, I want to be known for finishing fights. So I've been really focused on my first kill in the octagon. And now I 100% will take whatever risks necessary to get a finish, whether it's a knockout or a submission. I'm going to be going in pretty hard.
Yeah, I've seen you fight a lot, and man, I've seen you sleep a lot of really high-level guys. So I mean, I'm excited for this fight. I think it's going to be a great stand-up war. And now that your knee's better, which I didn't know about, that's going to be even better and more exciting for this fight. And so let's talk a little bit about your first UFC fight. You did take on a well-known guy who fought on Ultimate Fighter, a guy who's been in the UFC, Kyle Noke. And I know that was a short notice fight. I forget how short of a notice fight was that for you?
It was under 2 weeks. It was 11 days.
Oh wow!
But I had fought almost exactly a month before that, and it was a title fight. So I do not mess around in my fight camps. I take them more serious than anything in my entire life. So I did 10 weeks, which is the longest camp I've been to do that title fight. So I was in phenomenal shape, and I was in such good shape for that like the cardio carried over for the month. So I mean, like for the 11 days I knew about the dope fight, I was training hard, but I was already in shape, and I really didn't get that tired in that fight.
Nice. And like, how was it, making your first UFC fight? Like everyone talks about, that UFC jitters. Did you feel like you had that UFC jitters, or did you feel like, no, this is meant to be?
No, within a span of 14 months, I want to say I had 8 or 9 professional contests, mostly MMA, but I had 1 pro jiu-jitsu match, I had a pro boxing match, a pro kickboxing match, and like 6 MMA fights. So no, I was as ready to compete as I possibly could have been. And it was nice going into that fight as a huge underdog on short notice. I really had nothing to lose and everything to win.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, the pressure was on Noak. And it was funny, I had talked to my manager. I was like, hey, we didn't have time to game plan. I got this injury. Can I just go in there and swing to the fences? He's like, you know what? Normally I wouldn't say yes, but yeah, let's do that. And sure enough, I went in there blasting punches, and like my will to finish is what I feel gave me the decision victory.
Mm-hmm, definitely. And then also, let's talk about, I know recently you just competed in a high-level pro jiu-jitsu grappling match. I think it was for Texas Submission Hunter. I'm not 100% sure, but let's talk a little bit about that. How did that come along?
So I've known Eric Garcia, that promoter, for a long time. I actually just finished training with him right before this. Really good guy, but so that was right at the 6-month mark of my knee surgery, and that was kind of a test to see how I hold up in the competition. And I fought a really good black belt in a paradigm. And man, I didn't even think twice about my knee, and I ended up winning with the triangle, which was like a leg-based submission. And after that match went as well as it did, man, I was ready to take a fight, and I was as strong as could be. But yeah, those jiu-jitsu matches are a lot of fun. I wanted to stay active. That activity is really important for the mental game, and I wanted to, get in front of a crowd and compete. And then I felt right at home. I've never had an issue, in the mind games when it comes to the high-level competition.
Nice. And then, like, did the UFC know you did that? Like, were they cool with it? Like, how'd you get, like, the permission? Like, was that hard, or were they like, yeah, go for it?
So yeah, I was curious about that. I talked to my manager, and he said as long as I don't have a contract signed, which I didn't because I was still on, like, the medical leave, that something low risk like this is actually, like, encouraged to keep guys active. They generally don't mind grappling matches, from my understanding, as long as you don't have anything booked. And I didn't have anything booked, so it kind of played out perfectly. And this was a really good test run, for a competition. That's funny. I put a little extra pressure on myself accidentally. I was telling myself right before the match, I was like, man, if you go out on this stage and lose, you're gonna have some trouble in the UFC. But thankfully, I had won, and it really boosted my confidence.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's actually was my next question. I was going to ask you that. I was going to see, because you do have that UFC recognition now. Did you feel that extra pressure going into that jiu-jitsu match?
Not as, yeah, a little bit. It puts more on a loss, and I'm not going to say I was expecting to. The guy I fought was really good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, if I had lost, it would have looked worse than had I just been like just like a regular, local competitor. But thankfully, I was up to the task, did well, so I didn't have to think about that. But no, there's definitely a little bit extra pressure, even in training. Sometimes when I cross train, I just really got to stay on top of my game.
Yeah, it makes sense. I could definitely see that. And then, so, like, do you plan on doing any more of those jiu-jitsu tournaments, or are you mainly just focusing right now, just staying back in the UFC cage?
You know what? If it was up to me, I'd fight as much as they could book me, once every 6 weeks or every 2 months. But it really depends on the time frame. Like, if I, win this fight and have some time before I get my next one and they're okay with me grappling, then I'll absolutely stay active. Man, I really enjoy competing, especially while I'm young. Mm-hmm. So now, if an opportunity presents itself, I would absolutely do another one matches as long as, the UFC was cool with it.
Exactly. And also, on the same night that you'll be fighting, the UFC legend, or one of my favorite fighters, BJ Penn, is the main event, taking on Ricardo Lamas. And I was just wondering, how does it feel, being a fighter who I'm assuming that has watched BJ Penn come up, like fighting on the same card as him? It could maybe even be his last fight.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. I've been a big fan of MMA for like a good 12 years now, a couple years before I started training. And he absolutely was at his prime when I had first started watching. And man, it's cool. I'm really excited to go see him. So when I fought on the last UFC card, Robbie Lawler and Andre Arlovsky and Steve Aoki, those guys were all on the card. It was really cool seeing them. And it's just, I'm getting more and more comfortable being around these guys who I really look up to now. They're like essentially coworkers. And, it's crazy. I'll be able to, I fought Kyle Noak that the guy had watched on TV on multiple occasions. I never thought a million years I'd fight him. Sure enough, that was my debut. So, I'm becoming a little more realistic now. But it'll be really cool to see, BJ in the flesh.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably I bet that'd be so real, walking around, seeing all these guys you see all the time, and then, like, now you fight and share the same cage. That's awesome, It's real inspiring.
Yeah.
And then also, like, what do you think is your best attribute as being a fighter? Do you think it's your jiu-jitsu? Do you think it's your striking? Is it your heart? Is it your will to win?
That's a great question. I think it's my mentality. Some people don't agree. They think it's a little extreme. But, like, I have seen guys who are less prepared fight and get, like, seriously hurt. And so I make sure when I fight and when I allow my guys to fight that we know what we're in for and we have a death or victory mentality. The beauty of it, no one has to die because there's refs and rules, but, like, we go in there, like, mentally and physically prepared to fight to the death. And it just makes us mean and it makes us do what we have to do to get that win. So I think it's the mindset, and it's funny, the more I do it, the more confident and structured it becomes, and dude, I crave it more and more. So, I really live for these fights, and I think that, like, that confidence and that mentality gives me an edge over a lot of other guys.
That's awesome, man. That's some deep stuff. I like it. That's intense. Give me some chills. And so, like, let's talk about your gym. I know you run a gym in the Woodlands, Texas. I believe it's off Rayford or Sawdust.
Yeah.
And let's talk about that. I believe you've been there for a long time, and just tell me a little bit about how coaching is and, like, owning a gym and being a fighter at the same time.
Cool. So it's not that hard. I do a lot of my really hard cross training every single morning, and then every evening when I get to grapple with the students and kickboxing, that's when I work on some good technical work. And we have a good crop of pros at the Woodlands too. One guy, Jake Hefferty, is 3-0 as a pro, and so it's very manageable. It's a lot of fun, and it keeps me active, keeps me in shape. But I've been at that gym for 9 years. Because how long it's been open. We'll be our 10th year next October. Oh. And man, I started there as a white belt, and I've seen the ups and downs, and I've known a lot of those guys for most of my life, and it's just such a close knit community. A lot of the guys, a lot of our higher belts would really do anything for anyone there, and I will never leave. Like, even if I go ever cross train somewhere else, that's always gonna be my home, and I just really love that place.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, where can I? Do you ever do, like, privates, or do you do stuff like that too at the gym?
Yeah, so I do between 6 and 8 or 9 hours of martial arts a day. I actually have a video. It's like similar to UFC Embedded. And one of my good friends from high school is a film major, and he followed me around for a week, and he's just going to kind of go through all the training sessions, showing the privates and the classes I teach and all the different cross training. So it'll actually be available late next week. And a lot of the viewers can get a really good idea of kind of what a week of training entails, especially for these UFC fights. But man, yeah, I'll sometimes there at 7 in the morning. Sometimes I'll be there till 9 at night. It really depends on the day.
Wow, that's cool, man. That video actually sounds really cool. I definitely want to make sure to check that out.
Cool, yeah, that'll be up pretty soon.
And then also, so let's talk about, like, what got you into MMA? What made you want to become a mixed martial artist?
More just curiosity. So when I was younger, when I was like 16, I would hang out with my buddies, and they were a big fan of watching the fights, UFC fights. Watch the fights, play some cards, and at the end of the night, we would do some boxing or some grappling in my friend's backyard. And then just one year, I was curious, and my dad had actually got me a membership to a boxing gym. My mom went and took me training on a Saturday. I remember it vividly, and fell in love with it, and have trained almost every day since. And after about 6 months of training, I took like an in-gym smoker fight. And this is years back. I know they're kind of frowned upon now. But I won with a head kick, knockout, and man, it was training and competing ever since. And I never really had a goal to even, like, fight professionally. But the more I trained, the more sense it made to compete. And the more I would compete, the better I'd do. I'd get tougher fights. Eventually, I won that title as an amateur and as a pro. And I just worked my way up from there. And then, again, I had never had any, like, plans or goals to get to the UFC. I mean, if it happened, that would have been great. But I was just doing this for fun because I loved it so much. And sure enough, that love kind of translated into success, which got me to the big show.
That's awesome, man. It's paying off, yes. And so, who do you think was, if you had to say any one of your fights, who was the toughest fight you've had? Like, you look back on it, you're like, man, that guy, that was a war, you know what I mean?
Man, the toughest, so one of the most difficult fights was when I fought Baby Monster, because the dude was very strong, but he was also a very good black belt. So when we would go to the ground, there was no space to move, and I was super pissed and frustrated because it was such a boring fight, such a big opportunity. And when the third round came through, my corner was telling me to look at him. He was very tired, and I knew I had to make something happen. And then sure enough, like, the one thing I envisioned and dream of and trained for and planned for happened, and I hit him with, like, the biggest, nastiest right hand I could have possibly thrown. And that was by far my most, cherished memory in life because, the night was kind of a rough night. The fight was really boring, not going well, and then I hit him with, the knockout of the year. So that was definitely my most memorable fight, and also one of my toughest fights because I was in such a weird predicament for the majority of the match.
Yeah, that was a great fight. I feel like that was like one of the main fights that kind of got you. I think that was like one of the bigger names you fought, because that guy was just coming off the Ultimate Fighter, I think, and man, that knockout was crazy.
Yeah, that was definitely like the first really tough guy I fought, and man, it all just was big fights and big opportunities from there on out.
Exactly. So yeah, and so we got two more questions. One question I like to ask everybody that's been on the show. I just like to ask, if you could pick any superhero power, what would it be and why?
Oh man, I wish I had more time to think about this one. Superhero power. That's a good one. Magneto's powers are pretty cool. Manipulation of metal.
Yeah.
Pretty much anything with that. So considering I'm a time crunch, I'm gonna go with that.
All right, awesome.
Be unstoppable.
Yeah, Magneto, that's a great one. Something we don't get often, so that's pretty cool. And then also, you got any last words for your opponent, James Mutasa?
Yeah, so James Mutasa, yeah, man, he seems like a nice guy. He's super technical, and everyone in the UFC is tough. But yeah, if he hears this, I'd love him to just know he's gonna have to kill me to not get killed, and I am not an easy person to put away. So I'm going to blood. I'm going to the finish. And he better be ready to face that.
So make sure to check out Alex, the Great White Morono, take on James Mutasa at UFC Fight Night 97. And make sure to check out all of our other interviews at combatsportscoverage.com.